Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to 5 to Thrive Live. I'm Dr. Lisa Schuler, and I'm happy to have you join us tonight. 5 to Thrive Live is a podcast about thriving for those who have been affected by cancer and chronic disease. And I co-host the show with my good friend, Carolyn Gazella. You can find all of our past show podcasts on any major podcast outlet, as well as a schedule on our website, which is ithriveplan.com. So tonight, I'm going to be talking with Mark Blumenthal, who is the founder and the executive director of the American Botanical Council, or ABC. This is a leading independent research and educational nonprofit dedicated to disseminating accurate, reliable, and responsible information on herbs and medicinal plants, edible and medicinal fungi. Mr. Blumenthal is the editor-in-chief and publisher of Herbalgram, which is ABC's international peer-reviewed quarterly journal. He's been a busy man. He's appeared on more than 400 radio and television shows. He's written more than 500 articles, reviews, and book chapters, forewords. He's frequently quoted in the media. He's been doing this for over 50 years. He's really a leader in the global botanical and natural products community, really at the kind of the champion of science-based herbal education, research, ethnobotany, sustainable regenerative practices. So I'm delighted to have him on the show this evening. We're going to get to him in a moment. But before we do, I'm going to thank our sponsors. And those include Cetria, which is a patented form of glutathione, which increases blood glutathione levels. It's a master antioxidant and the body's primary defense against free radicals. And it also helps to support respiratory health. And you can learn more at cetriaglutathione.com. Cognizin citicoline, which is a supplement that helps your brain to produce more energy, which in turn improves your brain's function, memory, focus, and attention. So look for Cognizin on the label of a brain support formula or go to cognizin.com for more information. We also thank ProThrivers Wellness Supplements, including ProThrivers Wellness Brain, which contains Cognizin as well as some other brain-supporting nutrients and herbs. And you can find ProThrivers Wellness Brain online at pureformulas.com. You can also look for ProThrivers Wellness Sleep, which is a supplement that combines higher dose melatonin and some other sleep-supporting natural ingredients specifically designed for thrivers. And finally, Dr. Ohira Probiotics, a best-selling probiotic for over 30 years, contains 12 probiotic strains, which are shelf-stable without refrigeration due to a unique 3-year fermentation process. And you can learn more at drohiraprobiotics.com. So, Mark, welcome to 5 to Thrive Live.
Howdy, Lisa, and thank you so much for inviting me to join you.
Of course. So, you've been involved with herbs, medicinal plants for over 50 years, which is really remarkable. And I mean, what led you into this in the very beginning? How did you get so interested in herbs?
I graduated from college in 1968, and it was the height of the buildup for the Vietnam War and also the height of the anti-war activity for many of us. And I was involved with that. And, it was just during the Vietnam War. And they were going to abolish the graduate school deferments for many of us graduating seniors just 3 months before we were graduating and planning on going on to graduate school. I planned to go to grad school and or law school. And I guess is one good thing about the Vietnam War. There's one less lawyer in the world because I didn't go. So, but no, I know, cheap shot. I got a lot of good friends that are lawyers. But I was going to grad school and, study political science, philosophy, or law. And, I had to start thinking about what am I really going to do? I was just on the cusp of being 22 years old. And like a lot of people back then, you were just trying to think of what are our values? What do we really believe in? And I really realized that at that time that life is sacred. A human life is sacred. And then I eventually extended it to animal life too. And I realized that I could not kill an animal by looking in its eyes and saying, I really need to kill you to feed myself or feed my family, even though I didn't have one at the time. So I just decided to become a vegetarian and started going to what were called health food stores back then. We didn't have the so-called natural food stores and the Whole Foods type markets that we have today. And they were pill shops mainly, and that contained foods for special dietary purposes, like people for low sodium diets, for people that had kidney diseases or hypertension or whatever. And so there were special foods. You could only get you couldn't get vitamin C even in a drugstore back then, hardly. You couldn't get yogurt in a grocery store. You had to go to a health food store for that. Whole wheat bread. These are things that we take for granted, but back in those days you had to go to a health food store. So I started going. I saw a whole wall of these herbal teas, and I didn't recognize any except peppermint and chamomile, and books on historical folkloric uses of medicinal plants, which fascinated me, as well as books on foraging for wild edible plants. And that became a hobby for me. I started reading, these books about, plants and how they can be used as food as well as medicine. And I just got hooked on, medicinal plants. And I ended up living on a commune up near Taos, New Mexico in 70 and 71, off the grid, no electricity, no water for several years, until I moved back to Austin in 72. And out of all that, I started eventually an herb company with a friend of mine, wholesaling herbs, and just got into the business of herbs, and later got more involved with the idea of research, education, and advocacy and infrastructure for the herbal community, and helped found some herbal organizations that have grown into various organizations, including my former newsletter, Herbalgram, which became a peer-reviewed journal, and the American Botanical Council, which I founded as a vehicle to take the then newsletter Herbalgram and turn it into a scientific American-style, four-color, peer-reviewed, credible journal, but a readable journal on medicinal plants. And so that's kind of how my trajectory evolved.
Yeah, wow. Well, you come by this honestly then is what I would say.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, so, you've been publishing Herbalgram for over 40 years. It's a beautiful publication. First of all, the photographs are amazing, and the articles are really quite good. I know they're all peer reviewed and very scientific, but informative at the same time. How would you characterize the Herbalgram, and how's it different? What role does it play in this world of natural healthcare?
Yeah, thank you. And our entire website at herbalgram.org is based on Herbalgram, but we have and our organization, herbalgram.org, is based originally on Herbalgram, and a lot of the projects and programs that evolved with the American Botanical Council, because we have, quite a few different publications and other programs, which we may or may not get into, all evolved from the pages of Herbalgram by reporting on various issues regarding quality control and regulation, and the need for better regulation on herbs back in the day when there was really no appropriate regulation. Scientific research, reporting on clinical trials, most of them coming out of Germany and Western Europe back in the 80s and 90s, when there was no clinical research going on in the United States, and doctors and other health professionals were just totally clueless about the amount of research going on around the world, scientific research on herbs. So a lot of what we reported on in Herbalgram eventually became programs or projects of ABC as the organization evolved as a vehicle to take originally Herbalgram as a newsletter and turn it into a scientific American style or National Geographic. We've been called the National Geographic of herbs, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm not saying that we are anywhere near that, but other people have called that to us. Matter of fact, one of the nicest letters I ever got one time was at Christmas time. Somebody sent us a nice donation. They said, my wife and I, we recycle all our magazines except for two, National Geographic and Herbalgram. And I figured out, okay, we've arrived, because as you pointed out, Herbalgram is a beautiful publication, and part of the issue of communicating the value of herbs is communicating the beauty of the plants. And for many years, we relied on our good friend, the late Stephen Foster, who was a botanist, a researcher, an author, and one of the world's premier photographers on herbs and medicinal plants. And we have just acquired the entire collection of his photography, over 150,000 images of over 1,700 properly botanically identified medicinal plants that have adorned the pages of our magazine for close to 40 years and over 65 covers of our magazine. We're now publishing issue number 143 in a few weeks because it's quarterly. So, and many of the covers come from Stephen's incredible photography. So the idea of presenting the science and having things peer reviewed and having it being accurate and responsible and reliable and authoritative coincides with our wanting people to appreciate the beauty and the color and the morphology of herbs and medicinal and aromatic plants.
Yeah, well said, beautiful, and I'm so glad you have this collection of photographs because they're really quite extraordinary. So, this American Botanical Council nonprofit that you founded in 1998 has, I would argue, and I'm sure you would humbly agree, really served an important role in not only herbalism and medicinal, the use of medicinal plants, but ethnopharmacognosy, botany. Like maybe if you could just describe how you have intersected with all of those disciplines.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, we were founded in 1988, and Herbalgram, the publication,
Okay.
was founded in 1983. But just to be clear, 1988 when I started Herbalgram as a vehicle to take. I started ABC as a vehicle to take Herbalgram from newsletter to magazine journal level, and then everything else grew out from that. There's a science called pharmacognosy, which you're well aware of. And pharmacognosy is a little known science outside of the pharmacy profession, and even inside the pharmacy profession now, it's pretty much moribund. But it used to be required for all pharmacists graduating from the 72 or 75 schools of pharmacy back then in the United States. They often called it weeds and seeds. It's no longer required. It's been overtaken by medicinal chemistry. But pharmacognosy was the study of drugs of natural origin, pharmaceutical drugs that come from plants or in some cases animals, but mostly from plants. And that science has evolved in the late 19th century, early 20th century, and then has kind of moved into more medicinal chemistry because there's more focus on the chemistry than the plants. But even then, about different surveys will tell you different answers, but at least 25% of our modern medicines still are derived directly or indirectly from medicinal plants, and up to 50% may still be plant derived in the sense that the chemistry of the drug is often artificially or synthesized to mimic a naturally occurring plant compound, and they artificially make it because they can make it cheaper than collecting the plant or growing the plant and all that kind of stuff. So pharmacognosy is a very foundational science to legitimate herbal medicine and the use of herbs and medicinal plants in modern medicine and pharmacy. You mentioned ethnopharmacology, and which is a cousin of ethnobotany, which is the study of how native and indigenous cultures utilize plants in their native area, and or they trade with other groups of people, other tribes or groups of clans from other parts of the world where they trade back and forth. So ethnobotany is a study of how people evolve with plants and utilize them for food, for fiber, for shelter, for fragrance, for magic and ritual, as well as for medicine and color, etc. All the different ways that people evolved over the last 100,000 years or more with using the plants around them or trading for them. Ethnopharmacology and medical botany is basically the subset of ethnobotany, where you study primarily the medicinal uses of plants in a native and indigenous cultures. So these are they're foundational to modern herbal medicine, whether you're a traditional herbalist or you're a naturopathic physician going to one of the 4-year accredited postgraduate schools of medicine that produce naturopathy degrees, which you have done, fortunately, and which I respect very, very greatly. And, even for people in the area of pharmacy and in medicine, the little bit of medicinal plant training that they might get is based on ethnobotany and pharmacognosy. So these are the primary foundational sciences that deal with underpinning herbal medicine.
Yeah. And I think that was a really nice and important description because you linked closely conventional medicine, pharmacy with plants. And, they are still as relevant now as they have been for as long as humans have been on this planet. And I think that's an important thing for people to kind of think about and remember. There's been a lot of changes, of course. So one of the things that's happened is there has been a proliferation of products,
Yeah.
plant-based products, and with that comes, a continuum of quality. And the American Botanical Council has addressed this in lots of ways. One of the ways that you've addressed this is through the Botanical Adulterants Prevention Program, or BAP. And so tell us a little bit about what BAP is.
Yeah, and before I do that, if I may, let me go back one step further, one step again, and just to say that herbs and medicinal plants are baked into modern pharmacy and medicine through the use of the origin of the word drug, because the word drug comes from an old Dutch word droge, which means to dry, because they dried plants to save them for use as medicines.
Hmm.
And the word drought has the same derivation. The origin of the word drought, the origin of the word drug comes from the word dry in German or Dutch. So it's a drug is really a dried plant used for medicinal purposes. Originally, that was the original use of the term drug. So that's where it comes from, by the way. Now, many herbs today are sold in the marketplace as food, a certain category of foods called dietary supplements, and that's because in 1994 Congress passed the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994 because there was misregulation and lack of rational regulation by the Food and Drug Administration at that time, and herbs that had no place to be safe harbor to be sold in the marketplace, because if anything was sold for any health purposes, FDA automatically interpreted or misinterpreted it as being a drug. And if you didn't spend the $50 million back then is what it cost to get a new drug approved, you couldn't market it, and that was not going to ever happen. What's happened is there's been a proliferation, and there's thousands and thousands of different products on the market because it's relatively easy barrier to entry to get into the market and sell various herbal dietary supplements or non-herbal supplements, whether it's fish oil or whatever. And the fact of the matter is, some of these products are adulterated. And by adulterated in this case, I mean that they are not what they claim to be on the label. They are mislabeled, number one. By accident, they may have the wrong stuff in them or something that shouldn't be in there. But more likely, and this is the problem, more likely they're guilty of, or the people selling them are guilty of what's called economically motivated adulteration. That is, people have intentionally changed what's in the bottle compared to what's on the label and what the consumer thinks they're getting, or what the pharmacist or the naturopath or the herbalist thinks they're recommending, because somebody's cheating. And this goes back thousands of years. One of the best articles that we ever published, I think, foundationally and intentionally, when we started our Botanical Adulterants Prevention Program 14 years ago, the first of now 92 peer-reviewed articles that are freely accessible on the ABC website at herbalgram.org. The first article, that was written by the late Stephen Foster, the photographer we mentioned a moment ago, was called A Brief History of Adulteration of Herbs, Spices, and Medicinal Plants, and or plant drugs. And the point is, we went back to Greco-Roman times 2,000 years ago and documented all these different instances of when people were intentionally selling X and calling it Y, or removing something from X, or adding sand to the cinnamon or whatever to increase the weight, all the different ways that people cheated in the marketplace. So our Botanical Adulterants Prevention Program, known by its acronym BAP, B-A-P-P, the world's largest nonprofit research and education consortium dealing with trying to help the responsible members of the urban medicinal plant community internationally know what stuff is being adulterated, how it's being adulterated, what the evidence is that proves that it's subject to adulteration, and how they can protect themselves by using proper, appropriate, fit-for-purpose laboratory analytical methods to identify adulteration and or authenticate and assure the identity of whatever product ingredients they're putting in their products, because there are many, many high-quality companies that are reliable, that are run by very ethical people who care about the quality of the ingredients they sell. They care about the way they're processed, they care about the way they're packaged and marketed, and they care about the consumer's effect, the consumer's experience when taking these products, usually for their health benefit. And then there's other companies that are more sometimes in it for the money only, and they may be less committed to the type of rigorous quality control that's necessary. We're making this information available about what herbs are being subject to adulteration, which is an ancient problem. It's not a modern issue. It's both. It's been around a long time. We're making that information available to help protect the responsible members of the community so they don't get victimized by the unscrupulous sellers of fraudulent material.
Right. Yeah. It's really important because, one of the things that people sometimes might experience is they have the right herb for the right thing, but they don't have a good quality product. So then they come away thinking, herbs don't work. It's this old medicine. Let me move on to more modern options. Whereas, in fact, sometimes the real issue there is the quality of the herb or the herbal product.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you've taken the lead on this really important issue. And I guess sort of related to this issue is sustainability. I'm getting more and more concerned about sustainability with the growing demand for medicinal herbs. And I'm just wondering, what do you think is our current global herbal market sustainable? And, there are more and more plants that get added to the endangered plant list. Like, how do you see this working itself out?
Thank you for asking that. In 2018, we took on a project called the Sustainable Herbs Project. For 5.5 years, we helped build it up and incubated it, and is now, as of July, the summer of 2024, it has spun off into now what's called Sustainable Herbs Initiative, and they have their own website, and I encourage people to check it out. And we're building another website, another page on our website about sustainability. And the point of this is that we are very concerned that companies get the proper guidance and education on how to sustainably harvest or access or source their herbal material. Much of these herbal materials are coming from underdeveloped countries. A lot of them are picked from the wild, so there's a sustainability issue just from wild harvesting. More and more of these herbal products are being actually cultivated in small farms as well as large farms, depending on what herb it is and where the farming is happening. So there is a whole industry involved with just sourcing the plant material that goes into herbal teas, that goes into capsules and tablets, in as far as herbal powders, or are extracted with water or alcohol or other solvents to make dry or liquid herbal products, herbal extracts, and then again sold as liquids and or sold as the solid dosage forms as tablets or capsules, or put into food products or put into cosmetic products even. So there's a whole huge and ancient trade going on around the world, and it's a global economy in this. And of course, because of rising sea levels on coastal areas and changes in climate, there are concerns about not only the availability of some of these plants, but also the changes in weather pattern can also change the actual chemistry of certain plants. People in China have indicated in certain cases, and we published an article about this years ago, that tea from certain areas tastes different because the growing conditions shift. And when growing conditions shift for a plant, sometimes the chemistry of the plant will shift also when it's harvested, because plant chemistry, as you well know, is there in the plant as what we call secondary plant metabolites to help with the protection of the plant against herbivores, insects, and or the encroachment from other plants. So the amount of sun, the amount of soil, the amount of rain, and other climatic conditions can affect the actual balance of certain chemistry in the plants, which can affect not only their flavor in the case of teas, but also affect their medicinal effect based on the nutrients and or pharmacologically active plant chemicals that we harvest the plant for its entirety and or for certain extracts. So these things are subject to change with weather patterns changing. So there's all kinds of angles that are important on sustainability. It's not just about the plant itself, but it's the quality of the plant that you're getting. And also it's about the people involved in the value network. And instead of saying supply chain, we like to say value network. The supply chain is so linear. And really, if you look at it, it's like a root system. It's a network of people all along the way, especially at the beginning. And we want to honor them and try to ensure that they get a just and living and appropriate wage for their good work, which makes these plant materials available to us.
Yeah, so important, and I'm glad you tied in the, climate changes and the impact that has. These are all things we need to address for lots of reasons, this just being one of them. So, that's one way herbalism has changed since you first started. And I want to just sort of ask, kind of blend two intended questions into one. You've launched a new program called Herb TV, and I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that and if that somehow perhaps relates to just sort of trends and things that are happening in herbalism.
Let's look at a trend. According to a 2022 survey, 92% of American adults or Americans using the internet used YouTube.
Mm,
92% of internet users go to YouTube at least once or more times. So we have a YouTube channel. It's called Herb TV. There's no dot. It's Herb TV, HERB TV. Right now, we have about several hundred videos on there, and we're adding new ones every week. These are videos that some of which we inherited from a good friend named David Luzerne, a pharmacist turned herbalist up in Madison, Wisconsin, who started taking videos and documenting herbal lectures and herb walks from many famous herbalists. And then when he retired a few years ago, he's still active, by the way, in the local sustainability and environmental community. He just got out of sold it. He had 2 herb stores. He got rid of his pharmacies and turned them into herb stores. Now he's gotten rid of those. But Dave Luzerne, great guy, and he donated some 300 or more different video interviews on video digital tape to ABC for us to have. And we decided, well, okay, we have to deal with COVID in the last 5 years, but we eventually got this off the ground, and Herb TV was something he already had, but we just didn't have the bandwidth and the resources to really put a lot of time and energy in, which we're starting to do now. So we're going to be producing, and we are producing our own videos. We have a 10 or 12-minute video on milk thistle, broccoli, ashwagandha, tonkat ali, and saw palmetto. Those are the first 5 videos that we've done, about 10 minutes each, which are non-commercial videos that basically deal with various aspects of each of these herbs and their benefits, their uses, their science, their traditional use, etc. And then we're going to be making more of our own in-house made videos, but also we're aggregating video from other sources, from friends and colleagues that have a trove of video content that they're making available to us. So Rosemary Gladstar has offered some to us. Our good friend Chris Killam has offered some video to us. So this is going to become not just an ABC outlet, but it's also going to become a portal, or is becoming a portal for all kinds of herb-related video content. So a wide variety of educational opportunities for people. All free.
yeah,
All free.
fantastic. So great to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just have a couple of minutes left, and I would love to give you the chance. I'm going to ask you to share your websites with us, but first, any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Well, I think that it's important first of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this. I've always admired your energy and your clarity and your commitment to natural medicine. And I was a big fan of yours. And I know that you haven't said this, but you've been a very honored and welcome member of the ABC Advisory Board for probably 20 years or maybe longer. I don't know. So thank you for that. Appreciate you and some of the peer review you've done for some of our articles. I think the important thing here is that, herbs work. Bottom line, herbs work. You know it. I know it. Many people listening right now know it as well. Some people do not know as well as we do, but we know that they work. So we have a default commitment and a bias toward herbs. What we're doing at ABC, when we first started, herbs didn't get much respect. They were considered folklore, old wives' tales, to put it in a misogynistic pejorative back in the day. We are showing people that there is good documented clinical research and science showing the safety and benefits of numerous herbal products, as long as they're made properly, etc. And our goal is to help increase the public awareness, whether it's consumers, health professionals, researchers, journalists, government employees, that there is a appropriate role for herbal medicine and herbal medicinal products, whether they be dietary supplements or herbal drug products or both and more. There's a legitimate and appropriate place for these things as part of good self-care and good healthcare. Let's remember, self-medication requires self-education. We're part of the way to help educate people so that they become educated users of how to employ these herbs rationally into a very holistic but robust healthcare regimen. And herbs are part of that, especially when you consider the fact that herbs, like the adaptogens, are here to help increase our wellness and increase our robustness, increase our vitality, increase our immune system function. Conventional medicine doesn't have anything in this category.
Yeah. So fantastic final hurrah for herbs. I'm right there with you. And I just want to thank you, Mark, for your, 100% dedication to plants and to people. And what is the website that you can share with the listeners so they can learn more about the American Botanical Council?
herbalgram.org, herbalgram.org. If you go to herbalgram.org, and you register, we'll send you a free newsletter every Tuesday afternoon called Herbal News and Events. It's totally free, and it has all kinds of information about herb conferences, herb webinars, like 8 or 10 articles from the news around the world in the last week that's herb centric, and et cetera. So tons of free information at herbalgram.org. We're a member-based organization. We thrive on membership and we thrive on donations, and yet we also have about 20% of our content is freely accessible to the general public.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And that wraps up this episode of 5 to Thrive Live. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, Cetria Glutathione, the superior glutathione to support liver and immune health, Cognizin Citicoline to help enhance memory, focus, and attention, Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics, award-winning pre- and probiotic formulas, and ProThrivers wellness supplements designed specifically for thrivers. Thank you, listener, for joining us. May you experience joy, laughter, and love. It's time to thrive, everyone. Have a great night.